All right, everybody, welcome back. We got a fun one today. So, for all of those of you who have followed us from the beginning, we developed a segment last year that we've been kind of workshopping called "Crushing a Six Pack." It's one we really like because the name sounds cool. Um, but last year we kind of did like a draft type version of it, and this year we're going to change it up. We're going to do three questions to each other. So one of us will ask a question, the other will answer. Now the wrinkle is while the person who asks the question waits for the person who's answering, they have to finish their beer. And after six, we'll have crushed a six pack between the two of us, and that's going to be the segment. Tav's going to be a little bit of a slower drinker than me, so even though I am long winded, I will give him a lot of time before he has to finish his beer.
I think there's a delta there that's going to allow me to catch up if I'm being honest.
If the person has finished their answer and you haven't finished your beer, then we'll just go back and forth, kind of discussing the topic until the person finishes their beer. So by the end of this, we will finish six beers between the two of us, and that is a domed in promise. So let's get started. All right, Tav. First question of the six pack. I've got some fancy Bud Lights here. Oh, that's a good snap. My first question, and this is timely. It's a timely topic. You got to have a timely topic on here. JRS. What are your expectations for the returning senior this year now that he is fully back? Was in practice, looked good. What are your expectations for him as a receiver at Syracuse this year? Does he break 1,000 yards?
I think I've got pretty high expectations for JRS, honestly, coming back. I mean, he looks like he's in shape from the early clips, early images of him. He looks great. I mean, he's big, physical, looks everything like he was when he was healthy last year. I think there's a real good chance that he ends up. This is my prediction. I think he ends up leading the team in touchdowns this year, receiving, and obviously comes into camp late. But I think just early enough that he's going to get enough reps. He's obviously very familiar with the offense, right? He played here for 2 years under Dixon, which is about as long as anybody on the roster, I think, right now. And so I feel really good about him coming back. I think he's going to be the red zone threat that he was last year, especially early with Steve before the injuries. Teams better watch out for that front pylon, dude, because he is going to post up and he's going to keep people on his hip. And he's got strong ass hands, man. I think that one clip that came out of him, Brent Axe, who posted it, pretty unreal catch he made on his first day back in camp down the sideline there. I feel really good about bringing him back. I know there's a lot of question marks in the receiver room. I think we both like the talent in there, but he's a proven entity, and he's a guy I think we feel really comfortable about throwing the ball to on big downs.
Cheers to that.
Well done.
I agree. We do love to call him front pylon JRS here at Domes and Qs, and I think that's, as you're saying, two things. He's like basketball rebounder, right? He boxes out, he's wide bodied, and he's got strong hands. He comes down with the ball. So I'm with you. I like your prediction of him leading the team in touchdowns. And while I think that is probably very true because, like you said, a lot of familiarity both with Nixon and Angeli, I think there's another receiver who leads us in yards.
I actually agree with you on that.
And I think we think it's the same guy.
I'm curious who you're going to say here. I actually
didn't have first.
A name. I didn't have a name specifically in mind. I would take the field in that. I think JRS is our red zone target, but I'm curious what name you have.
Darius Johnson. I think Booby is going to be a breakout star for us this year. And I think he's going to lead us probably in receptions and potentially in yards. And I think that there's, a really good chance that he ends up being like the breakout player on the offense this year.
I like that pick for most receptions and yards there. The only other guy, honestly, that kind of pops out to me is Tyshawn Russell, who is another guy I know you like a lot. I think those two are going to fight for a lot of targets, honestly. And I think we're going to see those guys a lot on the field together.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll call it round one for Mr. King over here.
You got your beer ready?
I've got my beer ready. I will say I've had a head start on this, so I don't have to do quite the rush job on this first one. I'll make up my due because I'm going to be working with pint cans after this.
Okay.
So
Okay. Fair
I will
enough.
make up the ground. I swear. I'm going to stay on the same side of the ball here, but kind of ask a little two-part question, which maybe I should save for later if I've got the bigger cans. But that's dawned on me late here.
I'll talk your ear off either way. So
uh, running back room.
Mhm.
Two-part question here. Who do we think is the opening day one starter? Uh, and second part, do we think that's the guy that leads the team in rushing yards this year? And who, if not him, who?
So I do think it's the same guy. Um Barring injury, because I will say, like, obviously injury would negate this in any sense of the matter. I do think day one starter is going to be Tyleek at the end of the day, and I do think he is probably the favorite to be the most get the most carries and the most yards. I do think even with him getting the most carries and the most yards, I still think this is a by committee backfield. And I still think Ahmad Miller and Juwan Johnson and even Kerr and Coleman might all get touches at points throughout the season. But to me, there's something about Tyleek that I really like, and I think that they really like. You pointed it out on the last podcast. There's a reason that everybody else left, and we kept him.
Yeah.
And I don't think in a small way that had a lot to do with the end of the season and the way he ran at the end of the season. And another thing that you've said that I'll just continue to echo is we've seen guys, especially at Syracuse, come in towards the end of their freshman year season, be somewhat productive in very, very limited minutes, and kind of go on to have breakout careers from there. And so to me, that is an indication that I do think there's a lot of potential there with Tyreek Hill. And then on top of that, one of the reasons I do think he's going to be the day one starter is purely just the black jerseys thing, right? Because I think if you would have asked me a week ago, I would have said the answer would be Ahmad Miller might start or Juwan Johnson might start. And then I think Tyreek Hill is going to end up with the most yards anyway. But now that he's got that black jersey on, I do really feel like he's going to get the start and be the number one running back.
I agree. Honestly, there's a small part of me that still thinks there may be another starter week one, but I think for all those points, like this is the guy that came back and who's clearly worked his ass off to make sure he is in conversation for that starting position. And clearly the coaching staff has taken notice. And there was some bursts last year on a team that had no juice at the end of last year from Hill. Like we had a few, like as limited as it was, whenever the ball moved at all, it was really him moving it on the ground late in the season there. And I'm optimistic. I think you look at the type of back that he is too. He's quick. He can get on the move. He's great in open space. To me, he seems like a guy that really could flourish in Nixon's offense.
And I really just want to reemphasize that I don't think that this means that he's going to be a bulk carrier or that he's going to have like 1,000 yards rushing. I really do think this is going to be by committee. And I think even if he leads it, or if Ahmad Miller leads it, or if it's Juwan Johnson who leads it, like it's all going to be close at the end of the day. And so I don't think that there's going to be a major gap in terms of who has the most yards at the end of the season. I would be surprised if that did happen. And I think if that does happen, that would actually be a pretty bullish sign because that would mean that one guy just kind of took over and was so
Yeah,
great we couldn't take him off the field.
totally agree. I feel like we're racing towards a season where we have three guys with over 400, 500 yards rushing this
Yeah,
year.
I totally agree with that. All right, Mr. Tav, question number 2 for you. Open up my beer. So, as we know, if you want to be a good football team, you got to have a positive turnover margin. Syracuse last year was not a good football team, and they had a minus 13 turnover margin. That is tied for 133rd in the nation. and there was only one team worse than them last year in turnover margin. We had 10 takeaways and 23 giveaways, which on both sides, neither one of those numbers is very good. So across the board with our turnovers last year, we were terrible. In order to win more games, we have to be better this year. And so my question to you is, does Syracuse have a positive turnover margin this year?
Those stats are horrible, but what's funny is it matches right up with the eye test that like it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I expected to hear. Honestly, like we turned the ball over constantly, and
we didn't get many.
we didn't stop much on defense either, and so that checks out that we were the worst in the country. I think we do have a positive turnover margin this year. I think this is exactly why Coach VK was brought in here. We got to fix this, and he knows that immediately. I don't think we're playing the same. We're not playing the same vanilla shit that we played the last couple of years. He's got an NFL style defense. D'Apollonia has been quoted multiple times echoing that sentiment. I think it's very multiple and looks. I know you've covered that. I know we will get into it definitively, particularly when there's better film out. But I think like the style of play that Coach VK wants to have, like he likes that kind of quarters matchup look with his corners on the outside. It seems like it's perfect for Chris Peel and Demetrius Samuel, right? And it's like going to highlight our best players in a way that he's proven leads to awesome defenses and pro football players in the past. I would be surprised if our turnover margin isn't one of the highest. We might be the highest delta in the country this year from like last year to this year in terms of turnover margin. Largely, I think, led by the defense. And frankly, obviously, the quarterback on the offensive side of the football is going to make a major impact. But defensively, I expect that number to frankly get close to doubling, if not getting there this year from 10 to 20.
So we're both on record that when it comes to quarterbacks, we don't mind a quarterback who turns it over a little bit, throwing interceptions, pushing the ball down the field. However, Syracuse last year had 15 interceptions, which ranked as 126th in the nation. So if Steve has a bad year, I don't think he has 15.
No.
If he has a bad year, I think he might have 10.
Right. 12 maybe.
12 maybe. That's already 3 or 4 improving just if Steve has a bad year.
Totally.
He has a decent year and he gets to 8, you basically half your interception number. And out of the 13 that you turned over, take 8 of those away. That cuts your deficit right there. So I think just if Steve can stay healthy, I agree with you. I think just naturally there's a massive cut in what we do turn over. Next, we fumbled the ball.
That's good. I was hoping you were pulling up some stats here because holy shit, we did fumble it a lot too. I mean, Jonte had that, was it Duke, where he just like fumbled like 4 times? He lost a couple of them.
Yeah. 8 fumbles is not the worst in the country, but the worst in the country is 14-10. Syracuse is tied 85th, so it's not very good. And again, like small changes there, you fumble 1 or 2 less times, and you're middle of the pack in the whole country. And so again, if we can fumble 6 times this year, maybe, and we can turn it, and we can throw less than 10 interceptions, we're going to be at a total loss of like 15, which if we had turned the ball over 15 times last year, you're 50 in the nation in turnovers. That's where, for example, Miami was. And if you're a good team, like for example, you're Miami and you turn the ball over 15 times, can you get the necessary takeaways on the other side? So Miami turned the ball over 15 times last year, but they took away the ball 25 times, including 15 interceptions. So that's really the formula I think that you have to get to in order for you to be able to get to that positive turnover margin, right? Like, yes, we're going to turn the ball over. I don't think, 15-ish turnovers is terrible, but if you turn the ball over 15 times, can you get 20 takeaways?
100%. Like, I think getting to that 20 number would be a huge achievement this year. And I think I'm hopeful we got the secondary and the coaching staff to do it, right? I think Coach VK is really going to dial up some much more sophisticated pressures this year. I think we're going to confuse teams. I know I've said this a few times. It sounds simple. I literally don't think we confused anybody at all the last couple of years. Like there was so many plays where before the snap we had lost the play.
We
Like
were just not aligned
we
right.
just weren't aligned. We didn't know what they were doing. We weren't confusing them. They had the exact look they were. I mean, that Tennessee game last year looked like they had our defensive playbook called for us. Like,
Yeah, I mean, there were so many times like you could pick any of the games last year, but the SMU game is one that stands out to me because there were so many times where it was like 3-on-2 on the outside, and it
yeah,
was like, what are we doing? How are we at a numbers disadvantage?
yeah. And so like I fully agree that I expect our takeaway number to jump. And I think obviously our giveaways are going to come way down just with having a competent Division One quarterback all season.
And one of the things about the turnovers is last year there were every game it felt like we got behind. And so like if you remember the BC game, which I was just telling you offline that I had happened to watch on the ACC network a couple days ago, and that was a travesty. That's like a 1-in-10 team that came into the Dome at the end of the season, and obviously there was a lot of mitigating circumstances that team had quit at that point last year. To be fully frank with you, that team had quit. We lost to a 1-in-10 BC team that was one of the worst teams in the country. But one of the reasons we lost them was they just ran the ball all over us. So a team that wasn't good at passing the ball never had to do it. And that is pretty emblematic of a lot of teams that we played. We didn't force anybody into any kind of tough situations on offense because teams were never behind the sticks. Teams were always, as you were saying, getting exactly what they wanted. They saw the defense, they knew what it was. Quick screen, quick run, and everything they wanted, they got.
Totally. I mean, that Georgia Tech, remember that game too? Brent Key was fucking with us in that game. You know, like
embarrassing.
It was embarrassing. I mean, they're throwing it to guys who never play. Like they sat a bunch of their starters. Like, and he was just toying with us defensively. And like, too much talent there to do that. Like, I know last year wasn't our most talented defense, but still, like,
it was better than what it showed.
Exactly.
Hit me.
Rolling into round two here. Kind of picking up where we left off a little bit on the last question here. Who do you think leads the team in sacks this year on defense?
This is a tough one. Because I think there's an easy answer here. And the easy answer is for me to just go with Tanmisi. I say his name wrong every single time.
I think you're improving, though. You know?
Yeah. I think that's the easy answer. He is the kind of guy who has a ton of production. He's an older guy, and obviously older guys generally, those are really the guys you have to rely on in order to be successful on a defensive line. They need to be older guys. They need to have experience, and he's one of those guys who has quality experience. UNLV, right? So it's not P4, but it's P4. Can I call it P4 adjacent?
And I believe, did he have another stop before then too?
I believe he did too. Yeah, let me look. Let me confirm that here quickly. But yeah, he's played at Texas A&M and Michigan State and Texas State and UNLV. So he's played all over the place. And he had 1 sack at Michigan State. He had 3 sacks at Texas State, and he had 7.5 at UNLV. So I think that's the easy answer because I do think that's a guy who could probably get us 5-ish sacks. And if anybody else gets us 5-ish sacks, we're going to be throwing a fucking party if they can get us 5-ish sacks. So I will say it's him, but outside of that, I do have a secondary answer to this question that I think from the group of young guys, let's call them, and I want to name a few here. I think there are an additional 5 to 10 sacks from the group of Cameron Wilson, Jamie Tremble, and David Amaporiola. And I know Amaporiola is not really a young guy, so maybe that's not fair. But I do think from those 3 guys, I do think that there's probably another 5 to 10 sacks from that group of three guys who are also going to be key pass rushers for us. And specifically Jamie Tremble, who is, a developing guy in that area, and then Cameron Wilson, who is a freshman, but he's a stud freshman that we got, a big time 4-star. Had we not had Calvin Russell in this same class, Cameron Wilson would have been one of our biggest recruits, one of our best recruits ever. So this is not a guy to sleep on. And Fran has shown that if guys are, putting in the work and doing well, he's going to play them. And that is a kid that I think at the end of the season, we could see get a lot more time. Somebody who might not play a ton early in the season. Maybe he'll get some minutes at, New Hampshire and maybe some of the easier games, or if there is some cleanup time to be done, he'll get some. But once the season gets later on, I do think that kid could be a factor.
Yeah.
You've already talked about how Tremble could be a major, major breakout player for us. And I totally agree with that. I think he could be the breakout player of the defense. And I think he's a guy who has potential to get 5 sacks on his own. I think he had 3 last year, right? And he did 3 just out of athleticism, not even really, learning to play the position. And then finally, David Amaporiola, he's a guy who the coaching staff has early recognized. He's been around the program. He's an athletic freak. And I think that there's just such a ceiling to his game that I hope it's this year. And I hope there's an unlock there. Because the athlete is elite. Like it's an elite athlete that if we can figure out how to put in the right positions, which I think is going to be a strength of VK, I think there's sacks there. So while I do think it's too missy, I do also think that there is a committee of guys. Another guy that I didn't mention, he's an older guy. He's a transferring. Keyshawn Johnson is another guy I think can add some sacks. So, and maybe with the different way that our defense is going to play, Antoine can get in on the quarterback, surprise some people, make some plays. He's already shown in his career he has the aptitude for like the big play. So maybe a couple of big plays from him on sacks. So I think there's a lot of guys that will contribute. But I think that there's an easy answer here. That is
I get that. I honestly fantasize about just Antoine coming on blitzes and just destroying running backs. It's like that's just a fucking battering ram. Like I honestly like fiend for him to do that. I'm with you. Like I could see this being a year where we have it's a little bit of a cop-out answer because I kind of said the same thing about the running backs. I could see us being a year where we have 5-6 guys between that like 4 to 7 sack range, or 3.5 to 6.5 sacks, where we kind of have pressure by committee. There's clearly a lot of guys who can do it, and way more than this time last year. I think it honestly feels like a long time ago now, but like I think King Joseph was a loss for us. Like when we got him and he committed, I think Fran honestly was counting on him to develop into a primary pass rusher for us a couple years down the line. And that's an edge we know is a tough position to recruit, right? Like those are the freakiest athletes on the field. It's not easy to get those guys to come to Syracuse, and we thought we had one. And I think that's part of the reason why Jamie got moved so late, honestly, was like King Joseph obviously had his own issues, left the program. Jamie gets moved over there. But it may end up kind of benefiting us because we had to develop other guys, and now we've got Jamie full time. I'm with you. I think I think he's going to contribute, and he gets pressure on the quarterback. And
I think there's another ceiling there. I think there's another layer to that game.
I totally agree. And then again, Adeleye and Johnson, I think they are going to get some pressure. Like I think those two guys, you can pencil in 4-5 sacks for each of them. And it's really like, can you get pressure from some of the other guys down the roster?
And can you get pressure from some of the guys up the middle? Fontes, Hastings, Perry, some of our guys we like up the middle. Yeah.
I know Flournoy is more of a run stuffer, but I think all of those guys, like Perry showed some good interior pass rush moves last year. Like if you can develop some of that.
Agabore, Nisi, who is like kind of inside outside a little bit, but he's an athlete. Like, so my return question to you is, does Syracuse get 30 sacks here? Because 30 sacks would put us top 50 in the country last year. And last year, let me just give you the number. Last year, just like with pressure, Syracuse was not very good. I'm trying to find us. We were 107th. We had 20 sacks last year.
And
So can we improve by 10 plus sacks and get to top 50?
Can you give me a quick stat check on where Toledo was?
Toledo was number 12 in the nation with 37 sacks. And that's
My
the VK
answer is
effect.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We're going to get pressure on VK is going to get pressure on the quarterback, and he's going to rely on his corners to make reads, and I believe that. Short answer, yes. That Syracuse stat is honestly kind of wild to me because I thought we might be inflated because the pit game that we were at,
they crushed
the quarterback like 6 times or something.
Yeah.
Dobbity had like 3 or 4 on his own.
Yeah.
That's wild, dude. We did not bring in much pressure. We did not generate much pressure outside that game.
It goes back to what we've been talking about. Never confusing anybody.
No. Like,
you never
if you don't confuse anybody, you're not getting – I think that's actually a great call because I think it shows up in 2 big stats, turnovers and sacks. Yeah. And, like, that's what you do. Like, those are the big plays. Those are your negative plays, your turnover plays that you're – like, frankly, the coaching staff has to help create. Wasn't fucking there, you know?
Because a big sack is as good as a turnover. It can take a team and make it a punt right away. You can make a drive a punt right away.
Put a team at 2nd and 20. It's fucking hard to get 20 yards in 2 plays, you know?
I mean, it goes back to what I was saying in the last segment of when you look at like a game against like a Boston College team that was terrible throwing the ball and never once had to throw the ball versus us.
No.
You know, and their running back, Turbo Richard, is a fucking stud. He's now at Indiana, right? Because Indiana takes all the best players now because that's kind of awesome. Good for Signetti, honestly. I love to see new blood come in and just like fuck with people. I think it's great. But you know, like that kid was excellent. And when we played them and they were 1-10 and they came into the dome, we couldn't get any pressure on anybody. We couldn't stop anything. And you never even get people into passing downs. You never get teams off their game plan. And we just weren't able to do that last year. And I think that the coaching difference is going to help us in both the last 2 places, turnover and sacks.
Totally agree.
All right. So for the third questions, round 3, we're here. We've decided that the third question in the Crushin' the Six Pack is going to be national. You cannot talk Syracuse. So Syracuse is gone. We are going to go ACC here, though. I'm going to go ACC. You're going to go ACC. First question. Does the ACC get more than one CFP team? I just made a mess here, and I have no napkins.
The easy answer is no. I think we both agree Miami is the pedigree of the league at this point. I mean, like, that was probably not the right term now that I'm thinking about that.
Class of the league?
Class of the league. You know, that's where we're at. They're the class of the league. And I think they're honestly a pretty wide step above everybody else right now. And that program is just humming. And I think they're kind of the penciled in team from the league. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a second team, but if I'm taking this, even odds on both sides, I'm taking the ACC is a 1-team this year. There's a couple other teams that I think have a legitimate chance. Doesn't really match up with what the preseason rankings are, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. But
so then let me just interrupt here because I think I agree with you. It's probably 1 team. If it is a second team, I would love to hear who your second team might be. And how does that second team get in? Does it get in by finishing in the ACC second and upsetting Miami in the ACC final? Or do they get in with a strong enough resume that losing to Miami in the ACC final doesn't affect them too negatively?
Yeah, I think we're going to have very different answers on this. My team is NC State. If they can fix that defense, Bailey, I think, is the best quarterback in the league, to be honest with you, skill-wise. Like, I think he's the best quarterback in the league.
Best pro prospect, would you say?
Who?
Would you say he's the best pro prospect in the league?
No,
or just the best college?
I think the kid from Cal is.
JKS.
JKS, I think, is probably it. But I think there's a chance Bailey, at that size, if he can figure out the footwork stuff, like, he's like, there's not many kids that size that move and can throw like him, you know?
I
And
mean, he's crushing it for our ultimate team.
exactly, you know, he's a great video game player. They put up a ton of points last year and stopped nobody. Like, they probably had the worst defense in the league last year. If they can just be average in the ACC, I think they've got a chance to win 10 games. And I think their schedule is soft, man. They don't play any of the top teams in the league.
Before you continue, can I read the schedule just for the people at home?
Yeah.
So their schedule, and this is weird, and we actually talked about this last year, and it pisses me off to no end that this is a thing. But somehow NC State and Virginia have scheduled each other outside of conference play, which was weird because NC State beat Virginia last year, but it didn't count as a conference loss for Virginia.
It's goofy.
So NC State goes to Virginia in week 1, an ACC matchup that will not count towards ACC play, which is bullshit and terrible. Then they play Richmond at home. They go at Vandy, who has to replace.
We're wrong about that.
It does count as
it actually is in conference this year.
This year it does count as an ACC game. That's interesting. Okay, that's good to know. You know what? That's the NCAA and college football getting something right. We got to give them credit. Listen, I was ready to rail on them for being stupid, but sometimes they're going to get something right, and I got to give them credit. I'm glad that does count as an ACC game this year.
I am double confirming that. Yes, that is confirmed as a conference game. Yes, actually, cool. a win for reason and logical thought here.
I was just ready to assume we were past that.
2 conference foes will be playing a conference game this year. You know, like, big announcement.
Now that I think about this, that's kind of fun that we get a conference game in week 1. That's kind of sick. So you know what? I'm 180ing this. This is awesome. I love for a week 1 conference game.
It's awesome.
Fuck it. Put that shit in week 0. A week 0 conference game would be electric.
I will say the NCAA did try to fuck us a little bit because that game was supposed to be in Brazil. If you remember, it is no longer being played in Brazil, but they did try a little bit of fuckery with it. You know,
that was going to be one of those. Remember when the NFL had it in Brazil, and like the field was like the worst field we ever saw.
Awful.
All right, so at Virginia in week 1. 8/29 in August, we're going to get an ACC conference game. That rocks. Then they play Virginia at home. It's at Vanderbilt, who has to replace Diego Pavia and a lot, honestly. I think Vanderbilt's one of those teams who sneaky has to replace so many people.
Totally.
App State at home. And then ACC play really begins again for them. They get Louisville at home. They get Wake Forest at home. This is the part of the schedule where we disagree. They go at Stanford, then they go home against Cal without a bye week, and then home against Duke. And then they get home against Syracuse, and then at Florida State. And then they finish off the season at North Carolina. To me, that's a really tough stretch to finish your season.
Yeah, I just disagree. I think you're playing a lot of what I envision to be the bottom teams in the league, to be honest. Like UNC, Stanford, Wake, you get all 3 on the schedule. And you get to play Duke at home. Like, I personally think Duke is going to be bad. I don't get the buy-in on them after last year. Like, they were not a great team last year, and they lost all their best players to Miami. I'm confused what people see there.
You do get Cuse at home. It's better than getting us in the dome for sure.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's going to be one of their toughest games is us in the dome. Actually, sorry, they're at home versus us.
That's what I mean. It's better that they're not in the dome.
Yeah, 100%. And they're not in the dome. They get Louisville at home, which is their toughest in-conference game. And then Virginia, who I don't believe in Virginia. I'm going to stake my claim on this now. They're old, but they're not good. Like, they're different things. I do not believe in Bo Prabula at all. Never going to. I'm out on him. He's just not very good. And I get that people think Tony Elliott wanted to run more last year. Couldn't do that as much with Morris. Morris, it was a way better player than Bo Prabula. Like, I don't even think they're comparable. I think they're going to take a big step back this year. I just think if this NC State team can play some fucking defense, they've got a real chance at 10 wins here. I think Vanderbilt's winnable. I do agree that Stanford Cal stretch is tricky. They do have a bye week before Stanford, though. So if they could just stay locked in, I think they can get through that. But this is a pretty soft ACC schedule. Like you avoid Miami, you avoid Clemson, you play Louisville at home, you avoid SMU. This is a year where, frankly, they should be winning 9 games. Like, if you can't win 9, 10 games with this schedule, it's never happening there, and you got to make a change of coach, you know?
So much of what you said, I agree with. I love CJ Bailey. I think he's one of the best QBs in the country, to be honest with you. I do.
Yeah.
And I do think he actually translates to the pro level. I think his athleticism and his arm talent is elite. I think he's been hindered by being at NC State, and I think he's a guy who should look to transfer next year, to be honest with you. I agree that Bo Prabula fucking sucks and that Chandler Morris was a way better player. I don't believe in Tony Elliott and I don't believe in Virginia. I agree with you that their schedule is cake. It's cake. With that schedule, you're just this is my biggest problem with that schedule. You basically, if you lose to Louisville, it's okay. You can't lose another game because if you lose another game, then you're going to tell me they have to go and they have to win the ACC championship game versus Miami. And if that's what you're telling me, that they shock Miami and they end up 10-2, shock Miami and get in, okay, then I can understand where you're coming from. But you're banking on them beating Miami in the championship game because they at 10-2 or 10-3 if they lose a championship game will not be in over a litany of SEC teams with 3, maybe 4 losses. They won't be in over Big Ten teams with 3 or 4 losses. Ohio State might legitimately have 3 losses this year, and their 3 losses might be Texas, Oregon, and Indiana. And you're telling me that NC State's getting in over them. Like, I just, you know what I'm saying? And so that's the part for me with NC State that I have trouble believing is, yes, while I totally agree with you on a lot of those things, they have to literally be perfect. And I actually don't know that they even beat Virginia week 1. So Virginia has an interesting stat. Virginia has the most games started by their offensive line in all of college football. I think that translates very well for week 1. On top of that, where do you think NC State ranked in sacking the quarterback last year?
I mean, it had to be awful. Their defense was putrid last year. You know,
it was the same as Syracuse. They had 20 sacks.
Yeah, I mean they were awful. Like they were a fun team to bet on last year. Their overs were free. You know?
So to me, that's the part where I have trouble is just like there's a recipe early in the season for them to lose to a Virginia team that I don't think will be good, right? And then I think, like we talked, you mentioned it. I think this going to Stanford and coming back to play Cal is one of the toughest turnarounds you're going to have because Cal is going to spread you out. They're going to be so much tougher defensively this year with Tua Lapio or whatever the fuck his name is from Oregon. And they have the best pro prospect in the country at quarterback. So on top of all of those things, Cal to me is a really, really tough game on a back-to-back, right? That like I just don't know if their schedule sets up for them to be able to go in with 1 or 2 losses.
It's Cal on Halloween coming from the West Coast, though.
Yeah, but they're also coming from the West Coast, so that advantage is not alive. And Cal's going to spread you out with a guy who could throw the ball. And can you rush the quarterback? Listen, if you're going to tell me NC State is going to have a significant increase in sacks, like we're talking about Syracuse potentially having, then yes, we can have this conversation. They could be much better, but that's where it needs to start for me. I don't know anything about their defensive line, so I can't tell you that. But to me, they're going to need to be so much better defensively. And it just worries me because I haven't heard that. I've been doing some research. I have not heard that NC State's defensive line is going to be creating havoc this year.
I could be wrong. To be honest, I don't. I'm just. It can't be worse. Sort of where I'm at with that defense, and like, I just really feel like this is Dorn's last shot. Like, if he can't,
that's fair.
If he can't get it done this year, he's going to get fired. or he's going to retire. Like, and this will be a parting of the ways. But this is the team he's got to do it with, because I think you're right. Like, Bailey's not coming back next year. Like,
Oh,
he's
he
either
should not
going
be
pro
Yeah.
or someone's paying him $7 million, and he'll be the
He should be
quarterback
at
at
Oregon
LSU,
next year,
or wherever he is.
Indiana. Yeah.
Exactly. And like, nothing. I don't even really disagree with anything you said there either. Like, yes, they need to basically be perfect on the schedule. I don't think Bum Prabula is going to beat them week 1, if I'm being honest with you.
I like Bumper Beulah.
There's
We're
no
good now.
fucking chance. Like, I think they're getting points right now. I need to double check that, because I should.
Oh, if they're getting points against Virginia, I take it all
think they're
back. I
getting
take it all
points in
back.
that game. Like, I just feel I don't disagree with that. I'd like to turn this around to you, because I think you've got a different stance on this.
Mhm.
What is the team you're looking at that you think has the shot at kind of being that second playoff team?
So I know we can't use Cuse because obviously my rose-colored glasses would tell me Cuse is going to be there. But I do think Syracuse is going to be dangerous, which is another reason why I just don't think NC State's going to make it, because I don't think they beat us. And I don't think I think you have to beat us in order to make the playoff. I think you can't lose to Syracuse and make the CFP. And so the one team that I think has a really good chance of beating Syracuse this year, we've talked about it, is Louisville. Louisville and Notre Dame are probably our 2 toughest games on the schedule that we would look at and we'd be like, we don't really have a great chance against them. We don't really match up great athlete to athlete versus Notre Dame or Louisville. And those ones might be kind of tough for us. But Louisville, when I say Louisville, is reliant on the fact that their quarterback was an Ohio State kid, Luke Keinholz, who is now transferred there. And so what I'm hoping is that this is another just Kyle McCord type kid who they recruited too many elite QBs. One had to shuffle off. Jeff Brom, I think, is a great coach. I've always loved Jeff Brom. And the one knock on him that me and you have, I don't know if this is something people talk about nationally, but it's something me and you have, is that he seems to be great as an underdog. And he seems to not be able to do it as a favorite.
Yeah.
However, I do think Louisville is well positioned enough early in the season where they're the number 24 ranked team coming into the preseason poll. And unfortunately, I think we need to get rid of the preseason polls because they don't matter. Like they're just guessing. They never tie out. They never make any sense. So I hate them, but they do matter. They do matter because people do look at them and say, oh, like this team was good, so they beat them. And so Louisville they're ranked. They're in the neighborhood. And early in the season, the key for me is that they play 2 of their 3 toughest games right away. So their first week is against Ole Miss. And that to me is, if they can win that game, they pretty much don't have another really tough game on the schedule at all.
No.
And so if they win that game, it's going to be the last thing everyone remembers about them from the season is that they shocked the world, beat a top 10 team in Ole Miss, and then they disappeared for an entire season. And then they're going to be coming down the stretch, and their last game is going to be an SEC team, Kentucky, who is not going to be very good. Now, I do think Will Stein will eventually get Kentucky good. It's just not going to be this year. Kentucky might sneak up on somebody, though, and have a credible win on their schedule. And if Louisville can be 2-0 versus the SEC, and if they can go into that Miami game 11-1, 10-2, even if that step up is against a not as good team, they're going to have the 2-0 versus the SEC, and they're going to be good enough that people aren't going to have watched, because this is the rest of their schedule. Villanova at home, SMU at home, which is a top 25 game, and they're going to need to win that. And then Wake Forest at home, at NC State, versus Florida State, at Syracuse, versus Stanford, at Georgia Tech, at North Carolina, versus Pitt. So even if they lose 2 of those games in the middle, if they win Ole Miss, they win SMU, and they win Kentucky, they're going to have a very viable resume to make it, whether or not they beat Miami in a championship game.
I don't disagree with you. I think they've got another fortunate schedule too, and I agree that Ole Miss game is pretty much what, if they win that game, they've got a real shot. I unfortunately agree that I feel like Brahms shits the bed once or twice a year. You know, a game they shouldn't lose, they're way too competitive in, and then they outplay a team that they're like a team like Miami. I feel like they play Miami great every year. You know,
Right.
like they
But then
just
they're going to lose to Syracuse or Florida State, right?
exactly they're going to drop a game they shouldn't drop. Um, but I agree. My biggest question mark in them is I don't know if I believe in the quarterback, and I don't know that you fully do either. Like it's just a pedigree play. I do think like look, I get buying it on the Ohio State transfer after McCord, but this kid wasn't McCord. Like he didn't start for a
No,
year.
that's fair.
Like
He's not
he
McCord.
doesn't have the snaps. Like there isn't like uh and
My
some of these
bet is
other Ohio
purely that he had pedigree coming out of high school.
yeah, and some of these other Ohio State guys have been bad when they left. Like Devin
Totally.
Brown or whatever was terrible, and like a couple. So it'll be interesting. I do think like anybody that Brom seems to get his hands on is good and improves there, and so that's pretty bullish for them. Although Miller Moss was a little disappointing with them last year, but I think that was more on him than it was on the coaching staff. Like I think he just took a step back, honestly, as a
He
player.
wasn't very good.
No, I just think he
No.
had a couple flashes early in his career, and it just wasn't.
Lincoln gave up on him for the right reasons.
Yeah, totally. He's
And
got a better quarterback.
and I do have to say that I do think um, that the Louisville running back room is the best in the country. I really do believe that.
Very
Brown
good.
and Brown. Brown
Yeah.
and Brown, in my opinion, are the best running back room in the country. And I do think that can carry them through a very soft middle of the schedule.
Yeah, they're going to hit some big plays with those running backs, a lot of them, and so it'll be interesting. I mean, like, I think to me those are the two teams. Like, I don't even disagree with you. I think that's probably the other team I would go with would be Louisville. The team that I do not believe in is SMU. Like, I think they're way overranked in the preseason. People just like the quarterback. I get that they named the facility after him, which was odd. Uh,
Can
he's
we
fine.
be honest? We don't like him. We
No,
think he's not good.
fine. Like I think
No.
Jennings is a fine, good player. He's not a difference maker at a national level. I don't think. Like he's not someone who I think gets you to the playoff. Like they were gifted that playoff run his freshman year. That was their chance. That was truly their chance, and they were unprepared in that game. And I like Rhett Lashley. They were so awful in that game. I'll never believe in them again. To be honest with you, I think they're kind of flawed. Until I see differently, I think SMU is the most overrated team in the league this year.
I completely agree. I also think SMU is the most overrated team in the league. And I don't think that has anything to do with their defense. I think it's all to do with the quarterback. I think the quarterback is fine. And like you said, I think he had a very good run his freshman year. Don't think he was that great last year
He wasn't good last year.
against a mediocre schedule. And
The defense was bad for what it's worth last year too. You know,
and I think the defense gets better there. And I think SMU is a very good team.
yeah,
I think they're very beatable.
Yeah, agreed. Like they're a team that like they're probably another team is like a favorite at home does well. In any other situation, I'm not really believing them. You know,
The other thing about them is they do not have the easiest schedule. They go to at Florida State week 1. They play at Louisville, which is not an easy game. They come to the Dome. And they come to the Dome off of going to California. So listen to this. They have Virginia at home. They have Cal at home. And then they come to the Dome. That is not an easy 3-game stretch, in my opinion.
no.
And then they go at Notre Dame, and they go at Louisville, and they go at Florida State. None of those games are easy. And again, we've talked about this. Ashton Daniels at Florida State is gonna be just like what the fuck was his name there last year?
Big Tommy C.
Tommy C. He's just like Tommy C. He's gonna catch you in one of the first 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then he's going to be hurt because he's tiny and he runs a lot, and you can't do that.
He also just has a propensity to throw the ball to the other team, you know?
That part of it's not great, but I'm telling you, he's small and he gets hit. He's gonna catch somebody early. It might be SMU. And then going to at Louisville is not easy. Virginia and Cal back-to-back, not easy. Then coming to the Dome, again, I don't think that's easy. Virginia Tech later in the season. Virginia Tech's one of those teams you want early in the season. You don't want Virginia Tech later in the season. Franklin's going to have that team coached up later in the season. And then they go at Notre Dame and they go at Stanford. You're going to get beat up by Notre Dame and then you're going to travel all the way to Stanford. Their schedule is not easy. It's not easy. I get they avoid Miami. I get they avoid Miami. It's not an easy schedule.
It's not. It's not at all. And I just think like for what they are too, I just think they're kind of a soft football team, if I'm being honest. I think they're a soft team.
I think there's a very good chance they lose 3 of at Florida State, at Louisville, versus Virginia, versus Cal, at Syracuse, versus Virginia Tech, at Stanford. Just by the way their schedule sets up, out of those 6 games, I think 3-3 is probably likely there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Anybody else you would even put in this conversation?
I really don't think so, if I'm being honest. Like, I think there's going to be a lot. It's going to be a big jumble in the middle of the league this year. I think there's a lot of teams that are unproven between Virginia Tech and UVA. And what is Georgia Tech going to be this year after losing everybody, losing Buster on the offensive coordinator side of things? Like, Syracuse, I think, is better. Wake Forest, I think, is better. But I don't know that any of these teams are really a threat for the playoff.
There's one other team that I would put in there, and it's an interesting one. But I just think that because of joining the ACC, I just don't know that they'll ever be able to, just because of the travel aspect of it, and that's Cal. I just think that they're with the best quarterback in the league, in my opinion.
Not after they lose week 2, I'll tell you that much.
So there we go. So if we take Cal for a second and we take off our Syracuse glasses, because I do think they lose week 2, I agree. But if we take off our Syracuse glasses, I think Cal actually has a very similar setup to Syracuse. That Syracuse game is the pivotal game for them. And if that coach comes from the DC from Oregon, comes in, and let's say he's the next great thing since sliced bread, because he might be. He's everything I've heard about that guy, to Lapoli or whatever the fuck his name is. He is supposedly like the next guy. And JKS was apparently leaving until this guy flew down by himself to go meet with JKS and convince him to come back. And JKS is as good as it gets, in my opinion, in college today. Like if tomorrow we were drafting college quarterbacks, you know how I feel about CJ Carr. I'm taking CJ1, and then I'm having a tough decision between Arch and JKS as number 2 for me. That's me. I know there's a lot of other guys. Dante Moore is very good. Julian Sayen's very good. There's a lot of other very good guys. So I could very much be wrong. People love Mensa. There's Trinidad Chambliss is a very good college quarterback. There's a lot of other guys, and I could be wrong. But if I'm drafting for the NFL tomorrow, JKS is very much in my top 3 with CJ and Arch. And I don't think that's crazy.
Yeah. Likewise. I mean, he's awesome. He's awesome.
So
awesome.
If I just read you the schedule, they play UCLA week 1. And again, when we're talking about making the CFP, you are going to have wins, in my opinion, in the ACC over a Big Ten team, over an SEC team. It's one of the reasons I love Louisville, is because Louisville, to me, if they win that Ole Miss game, has 2 SEC wins on their schedule. That counts for something at the end of the year when you're making your argument. So Cal plays UCLA week 1. And if I think Bob Chesney is going to do an unbelievable job at UCLA. So if I'm playing UCLA, I want them week 1.
I don't think they're winning that game.
I don't think they're winning it either. So if they win that game and they win at Syracuse, this is the rest of their schedule. Wagner at home, Clemson at home, at UNLV, Virginia Tech at home, Wake Forest at home, at SMU, at NC State, at Virginia, versus Stanford, versus Pitt. I think they probably end up losing that NC State game because it's in the middle of a tough travel schedule for them. But like we talked about, it's not an easy travel schedule for NC State either. They get a lot of their tough games at home. Virginia Tech's at home. Clemson's at home. UCLA, that one might be neutral site.
Feels neutral, yeah.
Neutral site. But it's West Coast, so whatever. They get Pitt at home. They have to go to at SMU, which might be a banner win for them. So again, if they can survive the first 2 weeks, I think there is a very set up schedule for Cal to potentially be in this conversation. And it's the only other team I would even put in this conversation. And I don't even truly believe that. But again, think about who we've talked about now as the potential teams. It's NC State, great quarterback. Cal, great quarterback. Louisville, I'm just projecting that because he went to Ohio State, he could be a great quarterback.
Totally. That's believe in the quarterbacks. Like that's what's going to take you there. I think that's the end of the story.
Hit me, Alex.
All right, final round here. Trying to pick up the draft of our last discussion there. Who do you think is the biggest surprise team either way this year in the ACC? Who either is the team you think is going to go bad to good in the biggest jump or good to bad in the biggest change from last year?
So I like to talk, so let me give you both sides of it. And I'll start with bad to good. And I wanted to touch on this team because we didn't touch on them in the last segment about potential dark horses for the ACC championship. And there's a reason for that. And that is Virginia Tech. And I think this is an obvious answer. I think people want to talk about how good they're going to be with James Franklin. And I actually believe in that. I was a complete seller of James Franklin at Penn State. And I want to take you back to a couple years ago. Yeah, we both were. We were anti-James Franklin guys. But I want to take you back to a couple years ago when Michigan won the title. They had a big game versus Penn State. And for anybody who knows me, both of my sisters went to University of Michigan. They're huge Wolverines fans. And my late father was also a very big Michigan football fan because he sent both of his daughters there. He had great experiences tailgating and going to games, and he was a Canadian kid, so he didn't have like an American university that he liked, and Michigan was like something he really adopted and loved. So, we used to talk about it all the time. And I'll never forget there was the Penn State Michigan game, and it was college game day. I can't remember if it was at Penn State or at Michigan, but they did an interview with James Franklin on the field. And I called my dad. I was like, Michigan's going to beat this team by 100. Because I just watched this fucking guy get on the mic, and I was like, this guy, it is 2 hours. It's an hour and a half before game time. And this guy, we need an underpants cam on this guy ASAP because he's already shitting his pants. I mean, I was like, this guy's underpants are soiled an hour and a half before the game.
Big game James earned that moniker,
So it just seemed like every time that guy played in a big game, Penn State was failing. On the other end of that, I think there needs to be some realism about what Penn State is as a football program. And like, I remember when all these leagues joined, everybody was like, this is the best thing ever for Penn State because now they're not going to be just like two sides of the conferences. And it used to be split conference in the Big Ten, and they happened to be on the side with Michigan and Ohio State, so they could never break through. And everyone was like, oh, well, now that they don't have to break through those two teams, they'll easily break through. But I was like, the best version of each of these teams, they're like the sixth best team at best. Because USC, Oregon, if those teams are right, they're way better. Michigan, Ohio State are way, way better. And then I would argue if UCLA is able to get right, they're even better. And that's before Indiana even came into the picture, who now like Indiana is like way better than Penn State. We would all say that about the brand. Yeah. So on the realism of Penn State, there is a little bit of realism that I think James Franklin was working with. While he did shit the bed in big games, and he should have done better in some of those big games and taken advantage of some of the opportunities that were before him in those years that he was there, I do think there is a little bit of a ceiling to that Penn State program that the Penn State people, and maybe people even nationally, don't really respect. So he did maximize that program in a way. He did not get over in some of the big games. And I think that leads us to, he's a very, very, very good college football coach, but he's maybe not the guy you want at Alabama or at Georgia or at Michigan or at Ohio State or Oregon. But for the second layer, and if you're going to put Penn State in that second layer, he could be very, very good. And if you're even maybe a layer lower and you're at Virginia Tech and you're in that like soft middle range, I think he's the kind of
get back to that second layer bad. You know,
I think he's the kind of guy who could take you from that third range
yeah,
to that upper second range.
yeah,
Now, the way that James is going to do that is he's going to do that by recruiting high school kids and developing them, because that's what he was very good at Penn State. And
and
I
Vandy.
make yeah, and Vandy. And I make fun of him, but I do think that when it comes to that guy, if you listen to him, if you watch him, there is a genuineness to that guy where he seems like he's a good guy and he does care a lot about his players. I think you saw that last year as things started to go wrong at Penn State. I think he felt terrible because he felt like, I'm letting these kids down. And so I think that there's like, he's a good guy. He's a very good football coach, and he might be the right guy in the right moment for Virginia Tech. And that's why I think Virginia Tech is going to be that team that goes from bad to good. That was a long way around to help you drink your beer to get to the point where we're talking about Virginia Tech going from bad to good. Now, the reason we didn't bring them up in the last discussion is for one reason and one reason only. And that is, if we look at the Virginia Tech schedule, I'm pulling it up right now, they have 3 games that make me very nervous about them potentially going to the CFP, and that is at Clemson, at SMU, and at Miami. And I think having to play all 3 of those on the road is really tough.
That's
In
work.
addition, 2 other games I want to mention, they go at Maryland, who is not an easy opponent this year, and they go at Cal. So pretty much all of their road games are about as tough as you could be in a year when I don't think Virginia Tech is going to be as good as Franklin will eventually get them to be. And then on top of that, they have Grunkmeyer at quarterback, who I just don't believe
Literally.
in.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to get there.
So all of that has me believing that they probably will be pretty good this year. They definitely, I think, will make a bowl game. I think they might beat SMU and Clemson, and they might end up at like 9-3, maybe 10-2. They could sneak into the to the to the you know they might sneak into a conference championship game. I just don't know that this is a team that is going to make the CFP, but I think they're going to be very good.
I'm with you on everything. I think this first year is probably gonna be the worst year that Franklin has at Virginia Tech. If I'm being honest, I agree with everything you said, and I think I love the sort of style that Franklin plays to match up with Virginia Tech, right? Like it's kind of Beamer ball, like we're going to grind you defensively. We're going to run the shit out of the ball. We're going to play low scoring games out in the mountains, and we're just going to grind on you, and that's where Virginia Tech succeeded for decades. And I think his ability to recruit out of high school matches up perfectly with what Virginia Tech needs, right? Like Virginia is, I'm saying this as a guy who's from Northern Virginia. Virginia is a fertile recruiting ground, especially when you get down into the Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach, Portsmouth, Richmond. Like there is a ton of talent down there. And if you can rebuild that program into being something that can keep those kids in state, you're going to build a good football team. I just think I agree. I think it's going to take a couple of years. I think that it all kind of depends on Grunkmeyer to me. If he's decent, I think you're spot on. I think they win 8 to 10 games. If he's not, they might be 6-6 team, and it's just like a team that's building to the next season. But they're a team that's going to be a lot better than they were last year. Still one of the more bizarre, like divorces, but still living with my ex situation with Brett Pry being fired and then coming on as
That
defensive
is crazy.
coordinator.
Yeah.
It's weird, but they also brought back like their entire defense because of that, because the guys did love him, and so. And Pry was great under Franklin as
He
defensive
he he
coordinator.
might have just been a defensive coordinator, right?
You're right. I think, and we've talked about this. Even I think about him specifically. Like some guys are just that, and that's fine. I like the pick. Honestly, I think that makes good sense.
So I agree with you. Record might not even show that they are one of the more improved teams, but I think they will be. And I think also it's one of those where this is the year before the year.
Yeah.
So watch out for this team next year. Now you asked about good to bad.
Yeah.
And
I'm
I have
curious about this answer.
a great answer here, and I think it's the only answer. First of all, and this needs to be said because I don't know if we say it enough. This is a fuck Brent Key podcast.
I knew you were going this direction.
This is a Brent Key is a douchebag, and he's got a terrible memory. And him pretending like he didn't know who Fran Brown was will forever make him the enemy of Domed In. And Fran's a better guy than us, so he's gonna forgive Brent Key, but we're not. So fuck Brent Key, fuck Georgia Tech. Now, all that being said, and we're putting aside our biases. One of my favorite college football players the last decade of college football is Haynes King.
Yeah.
That kid was a gamer. You saw it in his first preseason game in the NFL, where it's like, I know he's not going to last in the NFL, and I know he's like never going to play a big role, but like even in a preseason game when he needed to find a way to just win a football game, that kid's just a fucking football player, dude.
Yes.
And he found a way to win it. I just love that fucking kid,
No,
dude.
he's awesome.
I love that kid. And he was that program for the past 3 years. And that kid was a gamer, a baller, everything you could imagine. So a team that went 9-3 last year and had a very, very impressive, total season. And then, they lost to BYU in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. But even that was a really good game, 25-21. That was a really fun game last year. I remember I ate, what was it, I eat 8 Pop-Tarts during that game? There's a great video that's not on the internet because I look terrible eating 8 Pop-Tarts, but it's for our boy Buey. I got down 8 Pop-Tarts for the Pop-Tarts Bowl. And this team ended up going 9-4. So a very, very good team. They actually started 8-0. After they beat Syracuse, they were 8-0. And then they lost to NC State. They lost to Pitt late in the season. And then they lost, obviously, in the Georgia game that they play every year. So a great season last year. And you kind of expected with Buster Faulkner, if he returned, Aaron Philo had looked like a kid that was ready to step up and kind of make the jump, that they might be able to continue what they had going. Unfortunately, Buster Faulkner leaves, and his system leaves with him.
So sad.
And Philo also leaves.
Also
and
sad.
I do think that he was a driving force behind why that team was so good. And it was a lot to do with him. It was a lot to do with Haynes King. It was a lot to do with the counter run style. And the counter run style was very, very tough to defend, especially with a mobile quarterback who was willing to take the hits that Haynes King was willing to take. Like, that kid put his body on the line in a way that made it extremely difficult to defend.
Totally agree.
Without that, I don't know we know what they look like. And I don't ever think in the past few years when Georgia Tech's been good, it's been because of their defense. I think it's largely been because their offense was so good.
The defense has been horrible.
They bring in Mendoza's brother. And so I might get burned by Mendoza Jr. But I just think he's the lesser version of his brother. And his brother is just a one-of-one psychopath.
His brother's the man.
That can't be replicated.
My thing with Mendoza, I just feel like nobody watched him play for a couple of years. Like, I remember when he first starting for Cal 2 years ago.
We were like,
I was like, dude, this kid, like, this kid came out and he's their like 4th-string quarterback. He's actually good, like
he's great.
I don't believe in little brother Mendoza. I got to be honest. The little brother's never good. He's never good. Like little Tua, fine. Great quarterback for Maryland, won 4 games this season.
Well, I don't know if you saw, but he did with American Samoa win in flag football. So
great. That's great. That's great for him. I'm pumped for him.
I mean, that's pretty sick, dude.
That is sick. That's sick. The Samoans dominating flag football is actually kind of but I couldn't be more in agreement with you. Like, Philo is a big loss. Like, Florida went and got Buster, and they made him bring the quarterback with them. Like, they did that intentionally. Like, Mendoza's not that level of player. If Indiana believed in that, he would be their starting quarterback. He would.
Well, Cignetti wanted to keep him. Cignetti did say he wanted to keep him. I get it.
I hear that. But I think Cignetti's a loyal, good guy at his core, and he wasn't going to cast away Alberto's brother after he's won him. Francisco's brother after he's
Fernando's brother after.
Which I respect. I respect him doing that and providing that cover. I don't think he wanted to keep him that bad.
I do love that you got Fernando's name wrong twice in a 5-second segment.
It's like, fuck. Did I change it to Francisco?
Yeah, he changed it to Francisco.
Right.
Francisco Mendoza would be sick though.
Sounds like a relief.
Did you see Fernando's answer the other day when he was asked about like the difference between college and the NFL? It was like, I drove to the game today. It's like usually in college you just hop on the bus. I drove to the game today. That was crazy. I was like, dude, this guy's a psychopath, dude.
That's wild.
This guy loves football and he knows nothing else about life.
Exactly. He's on the right side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Great quarterback, But I agree with you totally on Georgia Tech. I asked this question selfishly because I have two quick answers for this. I'm actually more excited for my good to bad. I did hit it a tiny bit in our playoff segment. I do not believe in Duke this year. I don't get it. They do not have a quarterback. And I don't really get where people think Duke is going to find another quarterback after they've just had the two best quarterbacks they've maybe had in school history. Am I getting crazy? I mean, Daniel
Riley
Jones.
Dixon.
Like, Daniel Jones is probably the third best.
Right. They were all kind of right
after each other, and that was different, with Cutcliffe still there. There's not Riley Leonard or Mensa walking through that door. There's just not. And they've got a couple young kids that they're going to throw out there, but their best receiver left with Mensa, Barkate, is gone as well. Yeah, they've got the running back Shepard, who's a good player. That's not enough to be an over 500 team in the ACC. I think their win total's at 5.5. I've smashed the under, if I'm being honest.
Schedule's easy though.
The schedule is not hard, but I don't think they're beating many teams in the ACC. If I'm being honest,
that's fair. I actually love this pick.
I just don't. I don't believe in this. Their defense wasn't very good last year. I don't see that taking a dramatic improvement, and they're taking a massive step backwards offensively. And they weren't very good last year. They won 7 games.
So what are we gambling on the Georgia Tech Duke game? Because you have to take Georgia Tech and I have to take Duke now.
I don't. Yeah, what's the number in that game?
Don't even think there is one. Don't think anybody wants to cover it.
That's a game. That's probably on my do not bet list for a game. If I'm being honest, I don't like either team at all. I've got nothing, and honestly, in that matchup, I would maybe favor.
Should we take the under? Is that the game to just hammer the under? The domed in under the year?
Yeah, I mean, Duke's.
But I don't think either defense is going to be that good. I mean, maybe Duke's defense will be okay.
Duke's starting quarterback is a kid from San Jose State who's fine. Absolutely fine. I'm playing an ad, but 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions last year before, 13 touchdowns, 10 or so. This is a mediocre quarterback. And so I just don't. I see massive regression coming for them, and I don't know if you remember a couple years ago when Riley Leonard got hurt.
It got bad. It got bad quick.
Really bad at Duke, and I could see that happening again, where they're just a pretty futile football team, to be honest.
And did you have another one for bad to good, or is that it for now?
Bad to good is a little bit trickier. I think you hit it more so.
I got the easy one. That's the obvious.
It's the easy one.
If you don't have it, we can cut this.
I don't have a team that's really standing out bad to good besides Virginia Tech and Syracuse, if I'm being honest.
Can't use Syracuse. It's a non-Syracuse segment.
The team I actually like, but I don't think I actually think they're going to have a worse record this year than last year, is Wake Forest. I think that they've just got their staff is great. Their schedule's brutal. It's brutal. And I actually think Gio Lopez, while I don't think he's terrific, he's better than Robbie Ashford. And I think Wake's defense is good again this year, but better
than Robbie Ashford's not a high bar.
No, but they won 9 games last year, dude.
I don't think they're gonna.
That's crazy. They're not going to do that again with this schedule.
At Purdue versus Miami, at Louisville, at NC State, at Cal, at SMU, at nah. That'd be lucky.
That schedule is murderous, dude. They're going to be lucky to make a bowl game with the schedule. Yeah. They might be a better football team and win less, be under.
Win significantly less games. They might go 5-7 and be a better football team. Yeah.
I don't see anybody else on this list.
Do you have any belief in BC? Any belief in BC at all?
None. to be honest. Like I really don't.
This is his last year there, right, O'Brien? Because they just brought in the new GM or whatever, right? The guy from Auburn.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. Like that's another. They're bringing in another kid who's coming way up a level, I think, to play quarterback. I think he's a Division II kid, I believe.
Yeah, but they have just a bunch of guys. Apparently, they don't really even know if they're
and
gonna.
like I just that seems like a mess, dude. That seems like a program that's not being funded because there isn't belief in the coach right now. And that's kind of my read on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ACC's fairly closed this year. Like, I like when people say like, "Oh, this conference is wide open." I think the ACC is fairly closed this year. I think it's a Miami event.
Yeah.
What do you think about Pitt? Because Pitt's not a team we've talked about at all.
I think Pitt is going to do what they always fucking do, and that's go
7-5, yeah,
and
8-4, yeah.
be good, be fine, and look great some weeks, and then look like they just didn't get out of bed some weeks too, or lose a couple games they shouldn't lose. Like they'll probably lose to West Virginia this year, who's not going to be very good. And I don't know, man. I don't believe in Heinschel.
Yeah, I don't believe in Heinschel either. But their schedule is pretty easy outside of at Miami and at Louisville.
Yeah. Look, there's winnable games in the ACC. That's a team that is always going to lose one or two games on their schedule they have no business losing,
Yeah. They're going to lose to Virginia Tech. They go to at Virginia Tech. They're losing that game 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Circle that one as a domed in, bet that game.
That's a game Pitt loses 10 out of 10 times.
10 out of 10 times. All right. And that is a wrap for crushing a six-pack. Six-pack's been crushed. The boys did it.
It's well done.
We'll see you on the next one.
All right. Shout out Francisco Mendoza.